Well, the top story, the focus story of this hour is the Kamal Haasan comments. Well, we are used to Kamal Haasan repeatedly saving the day on the silver screen, but since turning to politics, he has championed multiple social causes also. Well, among them is privacy and transparency. The actor has shot off a letter to the Information and Technology Minister, and he has raised two key objections against the proposed data protection law. The idea of the bill is to protect privacy and personal security, but critics, including Kamal Haasan, have raised multiple issues. Number one, the feedback mechanism is not up to the mark. The draft bill's copy is only available on the internet, and that too in the English language, which means millions of Indians were unable to access and read the draft copy. Now, Kamal Haasan wants the draft to be released in regional languages so that people can actually go through it and share their feedback. Number two, Haasan also says that this law will undermine the Right to Information Act. How? Let me explain. Well, Section 8 of the RTI Act exempts personal information from being disclosed. For example, if you file an RTI seeking information about your neighbor, the government will not oblige. But there is a catch. If that personal information is in the larger public interest, then you may get a response. In this case, if your neighbor is an MLA or a minister, then perhaps the public information officer will give you what you want. Now, experts say that the government's new data protection bill seeks to end this caveat. It will override the RTI Act and put all personal information behind a firewall. Now, what's more is that the definition of what and who constitutes a person has also been changed. In the draft bill, even a Hindu undivided family is considered as a single person or entity. So is a company, the state, and even associations of people. So if the public information officer wants to, they can withhold crucial information on companies, the government, and also ministers. And that is exactly what Kamal Haasan has opposed to in his letter to the minister. He says that the RTI Act is being converted into the Right to Deny Information Act. He also wants the telecom department to extend the deadline for feedback, which ends today. And by the way, it's not just politicians, even former and sitting information officers have raised reservations about this bill. So the question is, are we compromising transparency in the hunt for privacy? Is the data protection bill a smokescreen to protect the corrupt from RTI? And that is the question we are putting to our guests. I'm joined by an esteemed panel. Let me introduce them. Joined by Vinod Selvam, spokesperson BJP. Molly Jayaraman joins us, spokesperson M&M, and N.S. Napinai, advocate of Supreme Court of India and founder of Cyber Sathi, as well as Anjali Bhardwaj, RTI activist. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on this broadcast. A very interesting topic, but first of all, I want to start with Vinod Selvam. Vinod, your first comments in terms of what does Kamal Haasan's attack or Kamal Haasan's comments on the data protection bill mean? Are you at all in line with what he's saying?
I'm very happy to know that Mr. Kamal Haasan has finally woken from his slumber. Because when several issues have been plaguing the state where he tried to contest an election, badly lost from Coimbatore, when several issues have been plaguing the state, he turned a blind eye just because he has signed up with the actor turned politician, the recent minister Udayani Stalin, to make movies. And you know, the last 2-3 days, there's been a lot of criticism all across the state about him becoming a minister from out of nowhere. And just to hide the criticism, just to distract the people's attention from what has been happening in Tamil Nadu, Kamal Haasan has finally spoken today. So today, the entire state of Tamil Nadu, the people of Tamil Nadu, the people of the country can be well known of the fact that the BJP has been reinstating over and over again. The Kamal Haasan's political party is just a Binami party of the DMK, and they're just a mouthpiece of what the DMK wants to say. But today, they've used Kamal Haasan to camouflage the criticism which is going on in the state against Mr. Udayanithi Stalin and his elevation as a minister in the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, the DMK. If you look at the data protection bill, it is something which is very, very essential and very needed as on date, considering the kind of digital data which is being spread across, and the internet usage which is being spread all across the country, especially after the BJP came into power, after the Narendra Modi government came into power. The usage of internet is at its peak high. We are on par with countries all over the world. And I think it's very important that we have a bill to make sure the protection of the data is being done. And if you look at all the principles, all the important features of the protection bill, it talks about accountability, it talks about minimization of the data, it talks about timelines. You can't hold on to data perpetually, but fixed timelines as to which the data of an individual can be held. And it also has accountability of the person who's collecting this data. So there are several key aspects which I'm sure Mr. Kamal has not read about, but if he reads about it, he'll come to understand these are very essential points to make sure that one's personal data is not given out, but it's actually being safeguarded, and accountability is actually fixed on the person who is collecting such data. So I think it's very essential that this is being put to use. Also, there is something which he needs to understand. Now he is talking about this being available only on digital platform, especially on mygov.com, the internet page where the people can come and give their opinion about this particular bill. So if a person who cannot use the internet cannot give an opinion, is what Mr. Kamal Haasan is alleging, we should realize that if a person is not using the internet, then obviously is not going to be having any digital data to be concerned about. So people who have digital data are all people who are using internet. And if you look at India, approximately 65 crore people are said to be using the internet as on date. So I'm pretty sure that with this many number of people using internet in India, it is very evident that using the MyGov app is going to be the very simplest thing for them to do. And I'm sure that people are going to come and give their opinion. And people who are interested in right information, with this data, and these kind of stuff are definitely going to come out there, and they're going to voice out through the app. And it's going to be very easy for people to understand what this entire bill is about.
Right, Vinod, thanks for your views, but I have a few concerns with that. First of all, of course, digital the draft being available on the internet is not a problem. People can go and have access to it, but the problem is also the language here, and that is why maybe I will want Molly Jayaraman to come in. That it's a very important question he has raised, that why, if this bill is seeking feedback, then why is it only available in the English language and why not in regional languages, considering this is a very key bill. Nobody is denying, Kamal Haasan has not said that this is not an important bill, but he is clearly saying that everybody should be aware or should be able to find out what this bill is about. So language is also a big question here.
All right. Thank you so much. Before I get into the details, I just want to say that, my friend from BJP was saying that President Kamal Haasan has been sleeping, MNM is sleeping, has woken up. I'm actually supposed to say that BJP has been sleeping. That's very evidently clear because they've not been really following the activities of MNM. That clearly shows that. Or it could be like, one way to avoid problem is to be an illusion that it doesn't exist, right? So probably BJP wants to be in an illusion that it can govern into Tamil Nadu by being an illusion that a party like MNM doesn't exist. Friend, please follow our Twitter pages and our field protest and everything, so you will know what we are into. So
right, let's not politicize this. Let's just stick to this particular topic. Yes, let's just stick to this draft bill topic. We will get into the politics of...
I perfectly understand. I was pulled into it because of my friend's statement about MNM being awakened. Irony is BJP has been sleeping. Having said that, coming back to the topic today, right? So I'm very proud actually that we have stood up to this particular thing because we are the only party who are actually standing against this particular amendment to the Right to Information Act. It's no surprise because left or right will be for the amendment because they are the ones who doesn't want to give the information because corruptions are done through officers. They don't want to share any of the officers' data and stuff like that. So I'm very happy that a centrist party like MNM would stand against any amendment on RTI because we exhaustively use RTI to kind of understand what happens in the government, because we talk about honest politics, we talk about honest governance. That's what we stand for. Now, the amendment we feed is not for the democracy. The reason is democracy is for the people, by the people, and of the people, right? And I think in this way, this is being conducted. It says it's not, because I don't see this amendment bringing any benefit for the people. I don't see the way the feedback is taken is by the people, and the amendment does not want to consider anything with the people want as well. So it's not for the people as well. So I kind of feel this amendment is against democracy. That's one. Now, what is our president is talking about in his letter yesterday to the IT ministry is very clear. Now, amendment to the RTI is something which is very serious, can have a serious impact, because RTA is the only tool which is available to any citizen in India as a tool of transparency and accountability, which means if they want to validate anything, if they want to really understand how the governance is being run, or want to understand a particular things which are happening in a department, RTA is the only tool which is available, and you're going to make an amendment in a way where you're making it very subjective, and people can really escape by just pointing out saying it's a personal information. I'll get into more details of that, why I'm saying that. That is one. So it dilutes the RTI Act itself. Now, the second thing, it also tells us the parliament and the state legislature can get information, but then vice versa cannot happen, which means a citizen cannot get information as needed, right? And they're making an amendment that, personal information which are not related to public interest cannot be shared from. No information on if it's personal can be shared, which is very serious. Now, coming back to the feedback part of it, right, which our friend also pointed out, I don't think it's being done very well. So, anything we need to remember, this is called Right to Information Act. It's a right. It's not a privilege that, you can wish to give, wish not to give. It's a right. So when you're actually making any changes to the right, you need to really approach the stakeholders or the people who have the right to see what they feel about. And hence the feedback from the people is very, very important. And the way it is done, number one, it is all done online and is very complicated. I tried going and putting in my inputs. If you go into the site, sometimes it doesn't work. And when you go and actually work on it, you have to log in, you have to create a login and all that, which probably might be an easy thing for a person working in IT or, from an elite urban people. But then when you go to rural, real villages who also have the right for Information Act, they will have struggles. And our friend cannot really say that, in this world of IT, if a person is not going to use the internet, I don't know how he's going to use the information and all that. As a stakeholder, say, for example, if I hold a share in a particular company, I have the right to have the access to the financial documents and financial details, right? I may not be a financial expert, but then I can use that and consult a financial analyst and get more details to see whether my share is worth or not. So as a citizen of India who lives in a very rural village, still have the right to that. And I think he should be given an access by which he can voice out what his opinions are. That is one. Now, second thing, coming to the language, it's given only in English language.
Mr. Jerriman,
now, we're not saying that give it only.
Point taken.
Let me finish it. Let me finish 2 points. We're not telling that it should be only in Tamil. Pan India, give it in the regional language so that everybody can read and understand. That is one. And the timeline given is very, very little, right?
Of
so
course.
We need to consider all that. And it looks like it's done
yes,
for a formality.
That also helps in
with
penetration. That also helps in that also helps in penetration of that entire data bill going to all parts of the country, really, if it's available in several other regional languages apart from just English. But I want to go across to Ma'am Napinai now, because we understand the we understand the points that Kamal Haasan has made. He has said that he's urging citizens to save democracy. He is quite concerned about this bill. But for the benefit of our viewers, well, India has for long struggled to come up with to table a nearly flawless and a very not so controversial law on privacy. And privacy is something that needs to be, people need to understand the importance of it. They need to know how misuse of privacy or lack of transparency can impact their digital footprint. So, ma'am, if you can just share a few pointers regarding this very data protection draft bill.
Raksha, thank you. You actually highlighted the most important issues. that should form part of a personal data protection enactment, which is protection of the right of each of us as individuals, transparency in terms of how a process will work in terms of collection, retention, usage, sharing, or transfer of our data, and for that matter, even deletion. An issue was raised by the first speaker about deletion. Unfortunately, the current draft is not one size fits all. There are provisions which do not provide for deletions when it comes to government collecting data, etc. There are a lot of controversial issues, but I'm just pointing out that this is an aspect. That is, transparency with respect to when and how our data will be deleted is also a critical part of our right. So ultimately, when you want to have a good data privacy law, it is not about politics. It is about our rights. Each one of us as individuals, including persons forming part of multiple parties, wanting a robust law which will ultimately protect our rights. Everything else comes as a secondary aspect, but the first aspect, unfortunately, is what is getting missed out with every draft that's coming and progressively becoming worse. So when we talk about this draft, and to point out first with the two issues before you, one, there was a misconception with respect to the proviso in the RTI Act, and therefore I wanted to clarify it. And that's the saving grace there, which is that personal data which can be shared with a central or a state parliament or assembly, to be more precise, cannot be denied to any person is the proviso. Therefore, the interpretation was wrong in assuming that with the part about the qualifier being removed, you cannot get any personal information is incorrect. If it is information which has to be shared with the parliament or assembly, then each of us as individuals also have a right to ask for that information. But having said that, I would like to go on what has been said rather than who has said it, to point out that if a deletion is being done with respect to 8(1)(j) of the RTI Act, one, there should be a clarification in terms of why the deletion is being done and whether there is an equivalent protective measure for provision of this data under the Data Protection Act. Because then that authority moves from the information officer to the authority data protection board under the proposed law. Without that equivalent being there, and without a rationale being set out to why a tried and tested provision is being deleted, I would say that this is just a controversy which is going to delay an enactment of a personal data protection law, which all of us need. Nobody can doubt the necessity of this law and the expediency with which we should get it. So controversies like these are avoidable because they neither provide protection to us nor clarity in terms of how the law will function, and takes away rights which are in another parliament enacted law without due debate or discussion on that. So the proviso does save a little bit for us. That's the only qualifier I wanted to clarify on that. On the issue of language, if you notice, all consultations come out in English. However, when the law is enacted, the first part of the law is actually in Hindi and only the second part is in English. So if we understand the necessity of regional languages, and with the law minister himself making a statement about the necessity of use of Tamil in high courts, or for that matter, regional languages, even up to the high court or higher courts, and also for enabling the common man to understand legal aspects, I would say there should be no splitting of hairs.
To understand legal aspects, right?
We need drafts to be circulated in all languages. Why not? At least all the official languages, because that is what even the intermediary guidelines mandate now of intermediaries. So if you're asking that of private companies, why can't citizens ask for that from the government?
Right, absolutely. Ma'am, very, very important points you've raised there. I want to quickly go across to Anjali Bhardwaj to understand from her how vital or what is the exact meaning of Kamal Haasan's comments when he says that this is an attack on the RTI Act. So are we taking one step forward and two steps backward with this digital data protection bill? Is it like in the guise of being something to actually protect privacy, is it actually going to take away some very fundamental rights from our citizens? Quick comments from you.
Yes, I think the first thing to remember is that both the right to information and the right to privacy are fundamental rights in a democracy. It's been upheld by the Supreme Court that both of these are constitutional fundamental rights. We want a protection of both these rights. The job of any data protection law is to safeguard and harmonize both these rights. Unfortunately, the data protection bill fails on both these counts. For various reasons that have already been stated, it does not fulfill the purpose of giving our right to privacy to us. And on the other hand, it goes ahead and amends the Right to Information Act, which has been used by citizens extensively to hold the government accountable and to fight corruption. Look, in our country, we all know from our experience that corruption goes down to the lowest level. Unless people have granular information, personal information in many cases, about who is getting what entitlements and rights, they will not get their rights. For example, if somebody doesn't know whether their name is on the beneficiary list of pensions or ration card holders, they are very often not able to get their rations and pensions. So this information is personal in nature, but we need to have it as citizens to be empowered to get our rights and entitlements. And what this amendment is doing is going and striking at the heart of that kind of transparency, which people find so empowering and important. So already the Right to Information Act balances the right to information and the right to privacy. Section 8(1)(j) says that personal information cannot be obtained if it does not have any public interest, if there is no public activity involved,
Right.
and if there is unwarranted invasion of privacy, unless there is larger public interest. What this bill is doing is that it is replacing it with a blanket thing which says that personal information, all personal information will be exempt. This will be a blow to people's right to information.
Yes.
And let me clarify, the proviso
Right to
has
information,
also
absolutely.
been deleted.
Yes.
The proviso has been deleted. There is a proviso in the RTI Act which says that citizens can have information. If it cannot be denied to Parliament or the state legislature, it cannot be denied to us. It puts citizens at par with Parliament and state legislature in a democracy. This proviso is being deleted under the
Absolutely.
bill, and that is a problem.
Yes.
And let me just end by saying that this is not something that
Anjali,
concerns
yes.
only the 60 crore people in our country who have access to the internet. The poorest, the most marginalized
Into the
people in
internet.
the country
Absolutely. I think
use
we
the
all,
RTI law.
yes. Yes, and that is a big concern. Of course, the fact why Kamal Haasan had to step in and raise important issues and talk about how this entire bill is an attack on democracy, and that he was urging citizens to come up and raise their voices to save democracy. Well, key comments from all of you. Thank you so much for joining me on this broadcast. We are running very short on time, so I will not be able to come back for a second comment from either of you. But thanks so much for joining us on this broadcast. Please stay tuned to Mirror Now, as on the other side of this break, we will have more news and views coming up.